your whole life watching movies, from the bad to the good to the best. Well, here comes a series from the U.S. that rivals all of the rest. From the humidity down in Alabama to the where is Wyoming, we got 50 films to show you. After that you might not feel a thing. It's the worst state of movies to make you sit down and think. And it's the worst state of movies that might even lead you to drink.
Hey everybody, Wildman Wes here, and welcome to another edition of Worst State of Movies. Time to travel to the next state in the East Coast. We have now moved on to Delaware. Whenever I think of Delaware, I can only think of the moment from Wayne's World.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
No offense to anybody that lives in Delaware. Like I've mentioned in the past episode, it's been a while since I've been to the East Coast, and hopefully when things pick up when it comes to the financial situation, the family and I can travel out there and get as much education that I'm sorely missing. But that's beside the point today. We have a horror film. All right, okay, I'm excited because Shocktoberfest is just a couple months away. You know the drill on that one, folks. 31 horror movies in 31 days. But we'll have time for that. Today we're going to be talking about 2009's Survival of the Dead from George A. Romero. Now, to preface this, I was and still am a fan of George A. Romero's work. Though he's been gone for a while, his memory and legacy lives on, especially in the zombie genre. When it comes to Romero's Dead series, there has been a lot of praise, as well as a lot of controversy, as well as a lot of facepalms. And today, this movie has gotten a lot of heat, and we're going to talk about this movie in as best detail as I can. In theory, this movie is supposed to take place, if my mind serves me correct, 6 days before the actual announcement of the dead starting to walk. This makes me feel that it could be a prequel to Night of the Living Dead that came out in 1968. I'm not exactly sure. I did some research, but it was very back and forth. There have been a lot of people that wonder whether or not this was a prequel or a more follow-up to some of the other films later down the line. The movie takes place on a small island offset the shore of Delaware where two families, the Muldoons and the O'Flynns, are fighting. This is a tale as old as time, two families fighting for whatever reason. It could be anything. And while they are fighting, a lot of it has to deal with the dead rising and whether or not they want to dispose of the undead or try to rehabilitate them and find a cure. And they're not really agreeing with each other, where one of the daughters decides, no, we're going to try to figure all this out, and she's going to leave. Meanwhile, while that's taking place, we travel to Pittsburgh, where a band of mercenaries are trying to score some money and try to get to somewhere safe before the zombie outbreak takes them as well. While they find there's financial means and look for a getaway, they happen to find something on the internet where O'Flynn is opening up a resort for people to get away from the zombies and live a better life. So they decide they're going to go to Delaware and live a better life. However, they are completely misled because O'Flynn has been offering all this security for people for quite a while now, and he's taking their boats, taking their money, taking their food, taking any means of survival for he and his crew to not have to deal with any zombies. The mercenaries figure it out and they escape and get to the island where the O'Flynns and Muldoons were having their fights. While in the midst of being attacked by zombies, one of the mercenaries falls into the water during their escape, gets attacked by a zombie, but bites the zombie's fingers off. You know how in the stories of these films, if a zombie bites you, there's a good chance you're eventually going to become a zombie depending on where you get bitten? Well, they didn't tell you about what happens if you bite a zombie and draw their bodily fluids. Oh, once I saw that, I automatically went, yup, this is foreboding. This is going to be a bad time. After they get to the island, more battles ensue where the O'Flynns come back and they're fighting the Muldoons and the zombies are all coming around the corners and picking everybody off one by one, until I had mentioned about a young girl going away and then you find out that she's a zombie. But then they don't tell you she had a twin sister. There's a lot of plot twists in this movie to the point where my attention span, kind of like Gothica, only worse, this movie was very, very hard to keep up with. Anyways, long story short, O'Flynn and Muldoon eventually become zombies themselves and they fight each other to the death, or so we think, while the survivors get away. This one was tough for me. This one was very tough because, as I mentioned before, I am a fan of much of the work of George A. Romero. Not just the Dead series, but also movies like the original Creepshow, or even Martin, or things of that nature. Even Night Riders. I haven't watched that in forever, and that's one that I probably need to relive. But I digress on this. It's time to talk about what I like and what I don't like about this film. First off, I'm going to talk about some of the zombie special effects. Now, I forgot to look over some notes or write some things down when it came to special effects. If my mind serves me right, Tom Savini nor Greg Nicotero were a part of this team. If I am wrong on that, there will be a caption on the screen below to say that, yo, Wes, you messed up. Regardless, the special effects are a little bit more tame than what they've been in some of the other films. Now, granted, what they had back in the 60s and 70s could have been considered tame to today's standards. However, back then, they were absolutely horrifying. But in this one, it worked, but at the same time, it didn't have that charm that we've all grown to know and love from the Dead series, from the original trilogy, especially those. And for me, it became more of a parody than anything. I do appreciate the opening of this movie where a soldier has already been bitten by a zombie and is about to pass and turn into a zombie, and they have to decide whether or not they're going to dispose of him or keep him in stasis and see what they can do to find a cure. I like how they had that soldier laying down with a sheet over his head, and when he rises up and the sheet falls down. Because of the fact it's very reminiscent of the original Dawn of the Dead, after Roger passes from his zombie wounds and becomes a zombie as well, and it had that little brief moment of whether or not Peter was going to shoot him or not to dispose of him. And it's one of those almost heart-wrenching moments of, man, we've been through this before, and what's going to happen? And it was a nice nod. I appreciated that a lot. The biggest hardship of this film is that it felt as if the zombies were an afterthought. It felt like this movie was more about the feud between the O'Flynns and the Muldoons, and the zombies were just there for the ride. The movie could have been made without zombies. Like I had mentioned earlier, this is one of those stories that's tale as old as time of family feuds. And that's where this movie really strayed away from me. And even with all of the characters, whether it was the feuding families, the mercenaries, it felt like this movie was all over the place. And for somebody like me that has slight ADD or slight ADHD, whatever you want to call it, I was very turned off. And now it's time to grade this. When it comes to rewatchability, I'm sorry to the memory of George A. Romero. I don't think I can watch this movie again. It's just, I really couldn't get into it. It felt more of a horror drama than the horror series that I was familiar with. So unfortunately, Survival of the Dead, this was very difficult for me to do, as I mentioned, because of how much love I have for the work of George A. Romero. Well, for better or worse, we hope you at least appreciated my take on Survival of the Dead. If you agree with me, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't agree with me, which I'm sure there's going to be quite a few of you, you'll probably leave a thumbs down, and I understand. I am a huge horror movie buff and fanatic. However, there are some horror movies that I just cannot get into. But other than that, make sure you share on social media, push that little red button, and ring the bell for instant notifications. Until then, I'm Wildman West, and we will see you next time for another edition of Worst State of Movies. Take care.
It's